My name's Jeff, and I love beer. I don't just mean that I love to drink it though. I mean I'm passionate about the history of beer, how it's made, and what's in store for the future of beer. Some might call me a beer snob, but I see it a bit differently. I want to learn about all beers. It's time to go exploring in the world of beer. As much as I love drinking beer, which, it's a lot, I also like learning about its history. That's part of the reason we created this show, and hopefully you'll want to learn some of its history too. Today, we're standing in front of SanDiego's Museum of Man, which is located in the always awesome Balboa Park. They've got an exhibit in there which details the history of beer and how it's evolved alongside the evolution of humankind. Beer is one of the oldest beverages on the planet. With the exception of water, it's the oldest thing that you're gonna drink. We're gonna learn more about it, and you'll see that I'm not totally a blithering idiot or drunk. Yet. Catherine, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
Thanks for having us here. This is an amazing exhibit.
Yeah, we're really excited to have this exhibit at our museum. Who doesn't want to exhibit about beer?
Absolutely. So how did this come about?
We really wanted a way to get our artifacts out of our collections. We have 450,000 artifacts in our collection, and the public doesn't always get to see it. They're kind of tucked away, and so we looked through the collection to see what was the common story that tied them all together, and beer was one of them.
That's fantastic. And then I noticed you have a bar too. What's going on with that?
We do. We have tastings here. We actually bring in local breweries. They come in, and we have evening events. You can come to our museum at night. Sun goes down, all the public's gone. You can drink beer here right under the dome.
Can you walk around the museum at all, or you keep them right here?
We generally stay right here, but people do wander off.
It's not a night at the museum type of deal.
No mummies come alive.
Right, exactly.
No.
All right, perfect. I'd love to explore the exhibit.
Yeah, let's go in.
All right, after you. So this setup here is pretty awesome, but I'd love to learn a little bit about the story that's going on here. What would you say are some of the most important artifacts or the history that we're going to learn?
Yeah, we have a lot of great artifacts in this exhibit. I think my favorite and the most important one in the exhibit is the bronze beer cup that we have that's from Egypt. It has Akhenaten's cartouche on it.
Oh, man.
It's one of 7 in the world, and the other 6 are in the Cairo Museum in Egypt.
Wow.
And so we have the one here in the United States, and I think that makes us really special.
That's crazy. And who exactly was the man behind
Akhenaten?
Yeah.
Akhenaten was... They think Akhenaten was King Tut's father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's an important guy.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about the Egypt story that's really cool is that the workers that built the pyramids of Egypt were actually paid in beer. Mm-hmm. So they created a unified beer vessel that they could use as payment for the workers to build the pyramids.
Because the old story was that it was all slave labor, but over the years we've learned that's not true,
right?
Exactly.
They were actually paid in beer, but we can't find the beer because they drank it, obviously.
They worked hard.
Do you know how many gallons of beer that they drank to build one of those pyramids?
Oh, geez. I mean, probably 1 million gallons.
231 million gallons.
Oh my, 231 million?
Yes.
Sounds like my kind of laborers.
Yes, they were paid well.
So that makes me realize if I was born in ancient Egypt, I would have built the pyramids.
Maybe.
Perfect.
You've drinking 231 million gallons of beer?
No, but I'm working on it.
Okay. By the end of the show.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a very cool cup. What's the story there?
That is a solid gold cup that the Incan king used to drink his beer out of.
AKA Elton John of the Incas. I think I need to get one of those.
I think it's hand hammered too, so it's made by hand.
I can't drink out of it, can I?
You cannot drink out of it.
Okay, I didn't think so.
The other story that I really love is the Amazonian story. Their beer is called Nihamanchi Himanchi, and it is brewed using cassava roots, which have a precursor for cyanide. So if you chewed cassava root raw, it would probably paralyze you. So their method of doing that was they soak it in hot water and leach out the cyanide so that then they can chew it up and use the enzymes in their mouth to break down the starches into simple sugars.
All right.
And then they can ferment that.
I've heard of that beer before. I know there's a modern brewery that attempted to bring that one back, and they sold some of it. But the cyanide part is amazing.
We call it spit beer, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people really want to drink spit beer.
Or cyanide beer.
Or cyanide beer,
Death beer, yeah. That's insane.
It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And they also drank 3 to 4 gallons of that beer a day.
Okay, so
So
now
it's
I know.
it was a session beer, a low alcohol percentage beer,
okay.
but it was also like a nutrition aspect for them. You know, you have to get your
Interesting.
calories some way.
Yeah, by poison.
It's not poison.
I know,
after
it
you
went
leach
out, it went out, but that's, I mean,
It's a risky thing to drink.
So
you
the
know?
homebrewers of the time, if they didn't follow the recipe correctly, could have messed up. I mean, I guess they were all homebrewers.
Yeah, I'm
back
not
then.
sure how they discovered that, like how to leach out the cyanide, and how many tests that they had to go through
Right.
to do that. But
Yeah, the guinea pigs. So this is the Amazonian section. It was the Jonian Chachi beer. What was it?
Hamachi.
All right, I'll get that one of these days. And this is the cyanide stuff, right?
Yeah, this is the spit beer with the cassava root, and these are some of the drinking vessels that they would drink out of
They just
their beer. They're beautiful vessels.
take the vessel right to the face, or
Maybe not the big ones.
Okay.
Those are kind of serving vessels. I was thinking the smaller.
right.
The smaller ones. And then that's a grinding board where they would grind up. You can see that in this picture, where they're kind of spitting out the cassava root that they're then going to ferment.
You have to really like what you're creating if the part of the recipe calls for spitting.
Yes. We call these ancient growlers, essentially. You know, when you go to the brewery, you have your growler, you get to take it home. What if you got to take it home in one of these?
It's so much neater. Like,
They're
I love
so
bringing home a
beautiful.
glass growler because it means I have a lot of beer in my fridge. But these are gorgeous.
But you can drink out of these. They're handles. They've got handles built into them and spouts. They're just really interesting pieces of art.
So as amazing as it is to learn about the history of beer, it's also amazing to taste beer, which is what we're going to do now. You can't end something like this without enjoying what we just learned about, right?
Of course.
Awesome.
That one's for you.
Cheers. Thank you. The history of beer is pretty amazing, but so is the process of creating it. To do that, you need something called hops. That's why we've come outside of San Diego to this place. This is the Starby Ranch, and they grow those glorious little buds. Not those buds. This is a beer show. That's a different show. Eric, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for having us here. This is an awesome location, not just because it's related to beer, but that's part of it. Can you tell us a little bit about what Starby Ranch is?
Yeah, we originally, my wife's grandfather purchased the property as a real estate speculation, and my mother and father-in-law, they were here so much that they asked if they could raise their children here. So they moved to the ranch in 1979 and did the whole ranching, farming thing, chickens, pigs, cows, experimented with different animals, and then they just really fell in love with bison. Over time, being involved with quality food, local meat, craft beer kept coming up.
Yeah.
Since we were involved with the Brewers Association, we realized there was a hop shortage. We said, well, they won't let us brew because we're agriculturally zoned. Hops are agriculture, let's give it a shot and see what it does. So we put some experimental plants in the ground, and we're surprised to see that some did well, and bumped it up from there. So now we're up to 2 acres.
So what is the process like to go from, starting this to picking it off the vine?
Well, how about I show you the field and we can start there?
That's a good idea. After
All right,
you.
Cool, thanks.
Ooh, side by side. Can I drive it?
It's my wife's job.
All right. So this is where it all goes down, huh?
Yep, this is where we grow them. First thing we do is put the trellis system in. which is a pole that's pounded 2 feet into the ground. And then we put our top cable on that'll support our string that holds the hop plant. And then we put the bottom cable down at the bottom to keep the drip irrigation up off the ground. Once we know where the water is watering, we'll actually dig a hole and plant the root. The root is actually, called a rhizome. A rhizome is similar to like a ginger. It actually kind of grows sideways along the surface. And that's the best way to propagate hops. You know, you've got a perfect clone of the same breeding stock, genetic stock, basically. So put those in the ground, start the water going, and hopefully
magic happens.
Yeah.
When the hop season's in full swing, people can actually come and get their own hops from here?
Yeah, we let people, we used to do a pick your own where you could actually come out into the field and pick, but August is our harvest season. So it's brutal out here in the sun, and we have rattlesnakes and fire ants. And
so it's probably better to let you guys handle that. But
we figured
it's pretty neat, though.
Bring it into people. They can take it home. They can pick it in the air conditioning. They can take it to the pub, pick their hops while they're drinking a beer.
Yeah,
so
it's a good idea. That's a good idea. This is pretty awesome stuff. Now, you said you brew some of your own stuff here as well, just for yourself.
I do. Yeah, I try to do a wet hop beer every year, or a couple if I have time to do it. I didn't have a chance to this year just because we just brought in this new machine that we use for harvesting the hops. So putting that machine together was a pretty major feat.
So that big machine's on site?
Yeah.
Maybe we should go take a look at that.
Yeah, we can do that.
This looks like a great big toy.
This is, yes.
What is this thing?
This is a Wolf hop picker, originally made in Germany in 1972. It was converted to have more capacity at some point, I don't know when. So it's considered a WHE 170. So it has the capacity of doing 170 binds per hour. So our binds are 10 foot, so we could probably even do double that possibly, which just means a lot of hops really fast, which is cool.
How does this thing even work?
All right, so basically we start at this end, and it's the bind feed arm. So we feed the bind into one arm. It picks the bind up, takes it through the top, and all these spinning wheels are connected to drums with wooden arms that have picking fingers on them. And those picking fingers spin, and it strips all the leaf and hop cones.
So the bind is the whole strand?
The whole strand. So a vine is like a grapevine. They grow by wrapping around with their little tendrils. A bind is a vine that uses like a burr. So that bind goes through, the picking drums strip everything off, and then it falls down through a series of conveyors, and then there's a blower in here that uses air to help separate the leaves from the cones. And you get trash out the back end, and you get finished hops out the side.
Let's go take a look at the other side of this thing. It's pretty cool. So this is where the good stuff comes out.
This is where the good stuff comes out. This is where we can see most of what's going on with the machine and control it.
So you actually operate from right there?
Yeah, this is where all the switches and everything are. So the person who runs the machine would be one person. That way they always know what's happening with the machine. And you can adjust certain things to make sure that with different varieties of hops even, you can change angles and stuff so that it just works better with certain ones. And by little minor adjustments, you can actually get a very, very clean pick, which is cool.
Interesting. I mean, it's a lot to take in. It's a big industrial piece of equipment, which is interesting to see it surrounded by nature and buffalo and the field. But I mean, this thing does a pretty darn good service because it would suck to do this by hand.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
This is where the finished hops would come from, and I know we're out of season, but do you have any finished hops on the ground?
I do. I have dried hops that we store so that we can sell to breweries and home brewers throughout the year.
Perfect. Let's take a look at those.
All right, let's do it.
So we're in a freezer.
A freezer, yes.
I guess you have to keep these things cold.
Cold is good. Heat is bad for hops.
Right.
Heat, light, and oxygen.
So what's in this bucket?
So I call these hop growlers or hop kegs. So it's cool because they're reusable or recyclable. I just drop in an oxygen absorber packet and put a lid on these, and it pulls all the air out. That way there's no oxygen. It's dark in the freezer, and it's really cold. So it keeps them really fresh for longer periods of time.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So all of these buckets are hops?
All these buckets are hops, yep.
And then you got some vacuum sealed stuff.
Yep.
And
that was the initial way that we were preserving them. We found that all that packaging was just very labor intensive and kind of wasteful. So.
But if you had something like this and you had it frozen, how long do you think this would be good for?
A couple years.
Really?
2 years. I mean, the sooner you can use them, the better. But,
Sure.
But worst case scenario, open it up and see if it smells good.
Right.
See if you like it. See if you can work with it.
So you've got all these hops here. You've got home brewing equipment. You got to have some beer here, right?
I do.
Think we can try some?
Let's try some.
All right, let's get out of this freezer too.
Yeah, it's cold. Cold beer, not cold freezer.
Eric, I got to thank you a lot for showing us around. The property's beautiful. What you're producing is awesome because it creates beer. The gear was awesome. I also love seeing the buffalo. That was really cool.
Right.
So thanks for showing us around, but also teaching us a whole lot about hops today. More importantly, thank you for sharing some beer.
Cheers.
Cheers. That is delicious.
Like that?
Yeah, that's really good.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. I'm standing outside an office building. People are going to work. None of this screams beer. Well, you shouldn't scream in public anyway, because you'll probably get arrested. This, though, is the home of TapHunter. It's an app you should be using, and if you're not, I'm gonna show you why, because we're gonna go inside and meet the crew behind it. Additionally, there's a guy in here who calls himself the Beer Man. He runs a podcast. We're gonna find out what this is all about. Let's go. Melanie, thank you so much for meeting us here.
Thank you.
You are the co-founder.
That's correct.
What made you go into the world of beer?
Being in SanDiego, arguably the craft beer capital of the world, in 2009 we had come up with the original idea, which was to collect information on where you could find all the great beer in town.
How has the app grown over the years?
So when we initially launched, it was through our own social media following, and what we discovered pretty quickly was there were going to be a lot of people, not just in SanDiego, but nationwide, that wanted to have access to a tool like that. So we started on the consumer side, and we realized pretty quickly it was all the businesses that needed the most help. So that's when we built our first set of tools for bars and restaurants to manage and market all the beer that they carried.
That's neat.
Consumers would know what they had.
Yeah, because as the consumer side, I didn't really understand that the business side existed, but it makes sense because that information has to get to us somehow. So that's pretty cool. So we've seen some iterations of the app over the years, and there's a new one.
We've expanded the brand beyond just beer. So a very natural progression for our customer fans and bars was, when can I manage my spirits and cocktails and wine program through the same platform? And so the new app will incorporate all of that. So we're really excited.
So it'll still be TapHunter, but you'll be able to get so much more information.
Exactly.
Now, I'm really interested actually in the business side of it, because that sounds interesting to me. Years ago, I was a bartender. I like to consume beer now on the consumer side, but I'd love to see some of the business side stuff if that's possible. Can we get a peek at that?
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's pretend you own S&M Sausage and Meat, one of our favoriteest customers. And so what Mark, their beverage director, would do would log in at taphunter.com/admin, and this is the dashboard he would see. So he's presented with a couple different options to change his beer list, his spirits list, or his cocktail list. So it literally takes all of, a second or two to add and remove a new beer. They can put in beer description, pour size, and price. And then from there, that's where the magic happens. It'll update their website, their social media, all their printed menus.
And then that's neat that, they can print their menus right out of this.
Exactly.
So a place that constantly updates their tap list needs to do a new menu every day, and it looks like it's set up to do it super easy right here.
Exactly. Before that, they're trying to manage this in Excel or Photoshop or whatever else it is. So every time a keg changes, there's about 20 other things they have to do, and we streamline that whole process. So we save them a couple hours a day and being able to manage and market their beverage program.
That's fantastic.
So all the data that is in our app for the consumer, we get from the bars. They feed us all the information and we push it out.
It's awesome. So, you are a very necessary middleman between the consumer and the business owner, but the service you're providing on both sides, you're not just handing off data. It seems like it's much more than that.
Exactly.
The back end stuff for the business is huge.
You can create your own activity feed around the segments that you like. So if you're really into beer and spirits, but maybe not wine, or maybe you're not that into beer, but you love spirits and you want to follow specific styles of whiskeys, then you'll get an activity stream in the app that'll tell you where those are around you.
You have this great place, you've got a good crew, and I understand you're also doing some podcasting now, right?
Yes. So Andy on our team is also well known in the industry. He helped start Vancouver Beer Week. He's been with the TapHunter team over a year now on business development, and he had some experience and background in radio. So we said, let's do a podcast, but from the business side of it, which
Okay.
he's really versed at. He's been in the
Yeah.
industry for a really long time.
If he's around, I'd love to meet him.
Definitely.
There's a lot of beer and beverage podcasts out there, but they're all about tasting notes, and it's 4 guys sitting around drinking beer and talking smack.
Right.
And I don't listen to those podcasts because there's really nothing there for me. And I try to look at it from a consumer standpoint. I want to learn about the people behind the scenes. So we try to get beer writers and brewery owners, brewers. Welcome back to the Business of Beer podcast. I'm Andy the Beer Man Kopic. Thanks for listening. Please download us on iTunes and Simplecast. And as always, please rate and review. We like to know what you think.
So it's been a surprisingly educational day down here in San Diego. We visited a museum to learn about the history of beer. We visited a farm to see where this stuff comes from. And now we learned about the business side of the beer industry thanks to the folks at TapHunter and my new friend Andy. We're finishing this with some beer because this is the Beer Snob show. And what better way to leave San Diego than some having delicious beer?
Absolutely.
Another cheers. There we go. We'll see you next time on Beer Snob.